Coming up on Market Shares, we have just 18 days to go until Election Day. Former President Donald Trump laying out his economic vision for a second term in Chicago. We'll tell you what he had to say and if economists are in favor.
And the Boeing strike now has a major supplier furloughing its workers. What this means for the company.
And markets rally to end the week in the green. We're breaking down another winning week on Wall Street. Hold on to your wallets because Market Shares starts right now. Good afternoon and welcome into Market Shares. I'm Peter Elliot.
And I'm Michael Lamorte. We are about 15 minutes after the closing bell on this Friday afternoon. Let's take a look, Peter, at how the major indexes closed this week. You're going to see on your screen here a lot of green across the market. NASDAQ, S&P, Dow Jones, all finishing today in the green.
A lot of green indeed. The sixth straight winning week for all three major indexes. Michael, of the 70 S&P 500 companies that reported earnings this week, 75% beat market expectations. That is a remarkable number. Great week on Wall Street for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, you talk about that sixth straight week of gains for all three major indexes here. And the Dow just rose 0.2% after hitting a record closing high as well. So they're all hitting records this week, Peter.
And it's coming at a pretty unusual time. Usually in the weeks leading up to an election, you see a lot of turmoil in the market because they're not sure who's going to be elected, Republican, Democrat. Not seeing that this time around. Pretty steady, positive week after week after week. Some analysts are expecting maybe after Election Day was when we'll start to see a more topsy-turvy market. But right now, the market is doing well ahead of Election Day. All right, let's move into our market movers. We're going to see a lot of green here on the screen, much like my tie here. We're kind of celebrating a good week on Wall Street. Let's start here first with Netflix, Michael. That stock was on a binge this quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I've been told I'm the NVIDIA beat reporter here at Citrus. I pitched originally to talk about the company.
Yeah.
So I was told I have to talk about Netflix, which is probably the only thing I watch more than NVIDIA. So Netflix finishing in the green here. A lot has been going on for the company. It just reported its third quarter earnings that have beat expectations. And a lot of that has to do with its ad-supported membership tier. It's a newer program that you can elect to do for Netflix, and that is gaining at a momentum that is just not expected. Especially in international markets. Netflix kind of sees the U.S. market as being pretty tapped out, so they're really expanding into these international markets, and still the ad-supported tier is growing. It's not the dominant driver of revenue, but it does believe that in 2026, more subscribers will be on the ad-supported tier than not. So that's pretty remarkable for this company. And really, Netflix is anticipating an even better fourth quarter. Had a good third quarter, but you're looking into the fourth quarter. Around the holidays is when a lot of people start to pick up their subscriptions. If they drop off, they pick it up around that time. Squid Game Season 2 is coming back, and you see those live events are going to come as well. There's going to be that Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. There's going to be 2 NFL games on Christmas Day. So this is a time when Netflix is really looking forward to another quarter of strong growth. A good time for Netflix. Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about that holiday time, a lot of travel going on. Peter, what do you got for us? Indeed, a lot of travel, and you might be booking it through Expedia, or at least Expedia Group. You know that as the obviously owner of the namesake company Expedia, but it also owns Orbitz, Hotels.com, a bunch of other companies. That stock is in the green this week because of news of a potential acquisition. Uber, according to the Financial Times, is interested in purchasing Expedia Group. Could be booking a ride with that company. That's pretty interesting because it's been a tough year for Expedia. Back in February, its stock plummeted after a tough earnings report. Its CEO left, but now this news of an acquisition is exciting investors. Now, should this acquisition be seen through, this would be great for the stockholders of Expedia. So it's definitely going to be one stock that you want to monitor as more news comes out about that. Yeah, Michael, you can imagine kind of the pairing here of Expedia being a company you go to for your travel needs. You can book a ride to the airport through Uber, and then you could book your flight, your hotel, all through the same company. So you can imagine the kind of synergy there with all of these companies being under the roof of Uber. Yeah, absolutely. Well, sticking with that travel theme, we got one more here. Travelers Companies. Now, you might not know that umbrella name, but you know it for its red umbrella, the logo of the company. You know it as Travelers Insurance. It has had a surprisingly good week, Michael. You wouldn't expect that after 2 devastating hurricanes in the south, Hurricane Milton and Helene, but its stock was up this week 9% to around $264 on Thursday. Yeah, you said that you may not have expect travel's insurance to be up, especially after those two natural disasters right here in the U.S., but it's getting colder here in Syracuse, in the United States, as we approach winter and late fall. People are going to want to go to, the Caribbean, experience some warm weather. And if you're clumsy like I am, you might want to purchase traveler's insurance, which is why we might be seeing them in the green here.
And obviously, traveler's insurance big in the home insurance market, which has really taken a beating, especially in Florida, which is really a beleaguered market we're seeing there. A lot of companies have moved out of Florida. The reason why traveler's insurance did so well in this last week was because it had just pushed its premiums up. That's in the wake of all the damage in relation to those two hurricanes. So that's what we're seeing a lot of companies do. Travelers is kind of seen as a bellwether of sorts in the industry. It reports earnings before a lot of other companies. So this is good news for the home insurance market, which has seen a pretty tough time as of late. Well, from three companies that finished in the green, let's turn to an industry now that is all about the green. Weed. Last year, total cannabis-related tax revenue collected by all states topped $4 billion with a compound annual growth rate of 35% since legalization. Well, right here in central New York, rising entrepreneur Mike Flynn, his entry into the legal marijuana market has been more successful than he expected. Market shares analyst Ben Bacuk is live outside of his downtown storefront. Ben, what do you have?
Yeah, definitely an expanding market here in the state of New York. Right now, we're outside of Flintstone Cannabis Company's Syracuse storefront here in downtown Syracuse in Armory Square. This is a business that grossed over $80 million in gross profit in their first year of operations. That far exceeded their initial expectations of just $8 million. Now, we've only been here for just a couple of minutes. We've already seen probably over 50 people walking in and out of here. It speaks to kind of the greater growing market across the country. Like we said, that over $4 billion of collected tax revenue across all states in the cannabis sector. Now, the owner, Mike Flynn, that we're kind of speaking about today, he's looking to expand locations across the state. But here in the state of New York, those owners and CEOs are limited to only operating just 3 storefronts. He found a really creative solution, partnering with other entrepreneurs, over 30 of them, to spread Flintstone Cannabis Company across the state of New York, helping them find suppliers, helping them find financing, and helping them navigate, like we said, those tricky state laws surrounding the cannabis market in general. Now, Flynn says, quote, "A lot of these guys didn't get that business experience, so when their state money didn't come through, combined with the lack of experience, they were sort of stuck."
Plus, I have all the other businesses for my financial needs. You know? So
sure.
It's not like I need. This is more of just my passion, and I don't care if I make $1 on this deal. I'm doing it because I want to do it. But a lot of those guys are out there hustling, putting food on the table, and everything, and I totally respect that.
So definitely an impassioned entrepreneur, Mike himself, but also reaching out, consulting, and helping those other entrepreneurs open up their own small businesses and grow revenue across the state. Now, currently in the state of New York, there's over 200 licensed dispensaries, with over 1,000 operating with that preliminary licensing, waiting to open up in the future. So again, like we said, speaks to this greater market of cannabis in the country with that $4 billion of collected tax revenue. It's a growing market and something we're definitely going to keep an eye on. But that's all for me. Back to you guys in studio.
All right, thank you, Ben. Definitely a lot of green today. But coming up on market share, CVS Health just replaced its longtime CEO. How this could hurt or help its stock performance.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Yo, camping buddy. Okay, you guys ready?
Dude, I thought you were driving.
I thought you were driving.
Oh, I never said I was driving.
I definitely can't drive.
Okay.
If you're high, just don't drive. It's illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you drive different.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
All right, welcome back to Market Share. CVS has a new CEO. Long-term chief Karen Lynch is stepping down from her position. Another veteran company executive will take over the role. David Joyner has been president of CVS Caremark as well as an executive vice president of the company. The move comes as shares of CVS Health have fallen almost 20% this year and are down 8% today. The company has been facing challenges due to higher medical costs and softer consumer spending. CVS is set to report its third quarter earnings well below Wall Street's expectations early next month.
Well, speaking of embattled drugstore chains, Walgreens stock is rising sharply after the company announced plans to close more than 1,000 stores. Fourth quarter sales managed to beat Wall Street's expectations despite a loss of $3 billion. The closures will give the company a, quote, healthier store base. Walgreens has almost 9,000 locations, a quarter of which are unprofitable. The company's shares closed more than 15% higher on Tuesday.
And tech giants spending big on nuclear energy to power its AI ambitions. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon recently struck deals with operators of nuclear power plants to fuel its data centers. Earlier this week, Amazon announced it is investing $500 million in an agreement with Dominion Energy. This is also a part of the company's path to net zero emissions. Ex-Energy CEO Clay Sell stated, quote, to fully realize the opportunities available through artificial intelligence, we must bring clean, safe, and reliable electrons onto the grid with proven technologies that can scale and grow with demand, end quote.
Well, President Biden announcing Thursday that his administration will be forgiving another $4.5 billion in student debt for more than 60,000 Americans. Biden saying in a statement, quote, public service workers, teachers, nurses, firefighters, and more are the bedrocks of our communities and counties. But for too long, the government failed to live up to its commitments, end quote. Not everyone and anyone is getting their student debt relief, though. The PSLF program, signed into law back in 2006 by President Bush, allows for specific borrowers who have worked in public service jobs for at least 10 years and have made 120 qualifying payments. Those can be forgiven. There are a few other qualifications, and the Department of Education will be notifying eligible borrowers soon.
And we're officially 17 days out from the presidential election. And besides national polls showing former President Donald Trump slightly behind Vice President Kamala Harris, Trump now also facing pressures in the stock market. The Trump media stock was trading above $31 a share on Tuesday, but it quickly and suddenly dropped below $29 a share just before 3 in the afternoon. NASDAQ quickly pausing trades thereafter for about 5 minutes, which is the required response to a stock exchange that must impose this during a cool-off periods on said stock. This now the second time a brief trading halt was placed on the DJT. It first happened last month with President Trump getting vocal towards the stock exchange, saying it was, quote, taking orders from the SEC, which he believes delayed the Trump media's merger for political reasons. Now, polls consistently showing the economy is the #1 issue for voters in this election. So what plans have the candidates laid out on this issue, and how could it impact your wallet? Here with the latest development from the campaign trail is our Luke Radel. Hey, Luke.
Mike, Bill Clinton's campaign advisor, James Carville, had an old adage about how to win elections on what voters care about. Quote, it's the economy, stupid. And as both Trump and Harris roll out their plans for the economy, experts are now weighing in on what would happen if they got into office. A survey by the Wall Street Journal, which tends to hew conservative, found that most economists think that inflation, interest rates, and deficits would be higher under the policies of Donald Trump as opposed to Kamala Harris. Trump responded to the Wall Street Journal survey when speaking to Bloomberg's editor-in-chief earlier this week.
What does the Wall Street Journal know? I'm meeting with them tomorrow. What does the Wall Street Journal know? They've been wrong about everything. So have you, by the way. You've been wrong about
You're trying to turn this. You're trying to turn this.
You've been wrong.
No, you're trying to turn this into debate. There are business people. There are business
people. You're wrong.
People.
You've been wrong all your life on this stuff.
Now, Trump says the Wall Street Journal has been wrong about everything, but the numbers don't lie. Studies of tariffs enacted in Trump's first term showed that they were often passed along to consumers that were buying imported goods. The Harris campaign has pushed for their own proposals, like expanding the child tax credit and tax breaks for small business owners, but they're also warning that cars, toys, and even tequila could cost more thanks to what they call the Trump sales tax if he's elected. They even sent out billionaire and Shark Tank shark Mark Cuban to explain.
You know, in my career, I've learned a lot about business, including how tariffs work. Now, let me just ask you a question. Do you all know anybody who doesn't know how tariffs work? All right, I'll give you a hint. That other guy. This man has so little understanding of tariffs, he thinks that China pays for them. This is the same guy who also thought that Mexico would pay for the wall. So there's no Mexico.
All right, Luke, I also want to get to something else that Donald Trump discussed in that interview at the Economic Club of Chicago. He also talked about the Federal Reserve and Chair Jay Powell. He's been critical of Powell recently, right?
He has. He said that Jerome Powell has not been doing a good job as Fed chair. I want to play for you what he thinks about the role of the Federal Reserve.
Look, I think it's the greatest job in government. You show up to the office once a month and you say, let's see, flip a coin. And everybody talks about you like you're a god. Oh, what will he do? I mean, before, the guy used to walk into my office, he was like begging. Oh, he was fine.
But you did talk about you talked about removing him once.
I did, because he was keeping the rates too high.
Yeah.
And I was right.
And you would do that again?
In fact, he actually dropped them too much when I did this.
So it's interesting, when Trump's in office, he wants low interest rates, but when his opponent's in office and it helps him to be the challenger, he wants higher interest rates. I don't know how positive it will be for Americans if those interest rates are higher the way that Trump is saying that he wants.
That's right. On that note of Powell, he's now been the Fed Reserve chair for part of Trump's tenure in office. Appointed by Trump and through Joe Biden's entire tenure. It'll be interesting to see if he continues through that term. It's worth noting the president cannot fire or remove the Federal Reserve chair.
Right. But once his term is up in 2026, the next president will have the opportunity to kind of re-up his contract, if you will, to use some sports terminology,
right,
or if he wants to replace him, remove him from the Fed board. It will be interesting to see if they end up doing that.
It will be interesting to see for sure. Luke, thank you so much for your coverage here. Well, the sky doesn't seem to be getting any clearer for Boeing as its worker strike enters the second month. How this is affecting the company after the break.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
Hi, my name is Sadie Miller.
My name is Luke Brady. I go by St. Luke.
So this one I started with this guitar lick.
Welcome back to Market Shares. United Airlines shares are soaring after the carrier signaled to investors that the price war it fought this summer is over. The airline said that it is starting a $1.5 billion buyback program as they reported higher than expected earnings for the busy summer season. United shares rose 13%, leading the S&P higher and closed around $72. This is the highest price since February 2020, right before the pandemic, which halted travel.
Speaking of earnings report there, a recent one for Bank of America revealed it topped analyst estimates for third quarter profit and revenue. Better than expected trading for the company grossed 81 cents per share, and that's earning $25 billion in revenue for Bank of America. Now that's 4 more cents per share than analysts predicted. While this comes as good news, though, Bank of America reported a loss in revenue by 12% at $6.9 billion. This is a result of increased provisions for loan losses. Now, despite this, the better-than-expected performance shown in the company's earnings report for quarter 3 could mean good things are ahead for Bank of America in this next coming quarter.
Another bank, another higher than expected earnings report for this quarter. We've got another market mover. It's Morgan Stanley. The investment bank reported its earnings on Wednesday and outpaced expectations, reporting revenue of $15.3 billion, almost $1 billion more than analysts expected. Morgan Stanley is the latest bank to report strong earnings. Like we mentioned, Bank of America also impressing investors earlier this week with its quarterly results. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Goldman Sachs, they have all shined in the recent quarter. Analysts attribute the success to a better deal-making environment in light of the Fed's recent interest rate cut and improving CEO confidence.
And Major League Baseball's postseason has been knocking it out of the park. The first game between the New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers averaged over 8 million viewers, Peter, across Fox Sports. This makes it the most watched LCS game on any network since 2009.
It's great news for MLB. Last year's World Series between the Texas Rangers and Arizona Diamondbacks, two smaller market teams, tracked the worst TV ratings in the series' history. Yet the 2024 regular season was a success for the MLB. The league said it recorded record increases in attendance, streaming, and viewership, something it attributes to those shorter games and rule changes, which have been amazing, Michael. It's been so good for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually did play-by-play over the summer for an Atlantic League baseball team. It's not, those teams are not affiliated with like a major league team, but they use it as a test league.
Yes.
So it's really cool because some of those new rules are tested out there, brought to the majors, and it's just attracting a younger audience.
Yeah, it really is great. I know you're a Yankees fan, so I know that is exciting for you, hoping your Yankees can improve onto the World Series. Well, the NFL just approved former quarterback Tom Brady as a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. The Super Bowl champ and his partner, Tom Wagner, are paying over $200 million for a 10% stake in the team. Separately, former NFL player Richard Seymour purchased a less than 1% stake, also at $3.5 billion. That valuation. The team relocated out of Oakland back in 2020. Its revenue has increased significantly since moving to the Sin City. They are now the 5th most valuable NFL franchise.
Yeah, Peter, talking about those NFL franchises, this might be a conflict of interest for Tom Brady, who just signed a major deal to be a color for NFL.
And as part of his role with Fox Sports, he actually cannot criticize officials or be part of those pre-game meetings. So that's really interesting for Brady. Well, it's a saga we've covered extensively on this show. Speaking of sports, Diamond Sports Group and its Beleaguer Regional Sports Network. There's a change, but it's really more of a cosmetic one. FanDuel is acquiring the naming rights to the channels starting on Monday. The company officially announcing the change in just the last few hours. That means its 16 networks, like Bally Sports Indiana, will now become FanDuel Sports Network Indiana. Doesn't that just roll off the tongue? The name change comes just days before the NBA season is set to tip off on Tuesday night. Diamond Sports Group is bankrupt and in hot water with the NBA, NHL, and MLB, who want to know what the future will look like for its broadcasts. As part of this naming rights deal, FanDuel is gaining a 5% stake in Diamond.
And Boeing workers have been on strike for just over a month now. Riley Underwood is in studio. Riley, how are things looking for the company?
Well, they're not looking too good. The International Association of Machinists is striking because it's demanding a 40% wage increase spread over 4 years. Boeing responded with an offer to increase them by 25%, but the union declined. The strike halts production of all Boeing's aircrafts. The cost so far for the company, over $5 billion, according to a new analysis by Anderson Economic Group. And this news adds on to Boeing's recent string of bad fortune, from the 2 fatal crashes in 2018 and 19 that killed nearly 350 people and pleading guilty to defrauding the FAA, to videos this year of doors being blown off in the air. It's raised questions over the quality of their aircrafts.
That absolutely none of that is the workers' fault. All of the problems that Boeing currently has with them they've done this themselves. This is done at the corporate level. This is done at the higher level executives of this company. They're the ones that have made the bad decisions that have put the Boeing Corporation in the position that they're in. They build the best planes in the world, and they want to continue building the best planes in the world. And all Boeing has to do is bring a fair contract to them that recognizes the value of the work that they do.
Boeing stock has dropped over 16% in just the past 3 months. And just last week, Boeing announced that it will be laying off about 10% of its workforce. It's around 17,000 employees. Big news for a company that contributes $80 billion to the U.S. economy each year.
All right, Riley, now we're hearing a lot about how they're making headlines, making major changes, but how are they financially recovering from this, and how are they hurting?
Well, they are hurting, and they've already been going through money like crazy for the past couple of years. And they're for more than 5 years, ever since those 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes, because that led to a 20-month grounding of their best-selling plane. Since then, Boeing has reported more than $33 billion in core operating losses. There's really no end in sight. The problem is that the halt of the production has cut off the most important source of funds for Boeing, because it's a company that gets most of its cash from aircraft sales at the time the plane's delivered. Investors now believe an equity sale by Boeing is a virtual certainty. Roughly $10 billion in new shares are close to being sold by the company, along with nearly $5 billion in mandatory convertible bonds.
All right, Riley, so let's zoom out here. We've talked about how it's impacting Boeing. How is it affecting the economy here at large in the U.S.?
Well, it's taken its toll. Boeing's the nation's largest exporter, and now they aren't exporting. It's estimated that they affect over 1.6 million American jobs directly and indirectly in all 50 states because of their over 10,000 suppliers. And Spirit AeroSystems also just announced that it will temporarily lay off over 700 employees in Wichita, Kansas, a major supplier that Boeing purchased earlier this year. Boeing stock is now down nearly 60% over the past 5 years. But even if they have to file for bankruptcy, Boeing's not going to be going anywhere. Boeing and European manufacturer Airbus are pretty much the only companies that make the full-size jets the global airline industry needs. So its place as part of this duopoly essentially ensures its survival.
All right, thank you, Riley. Well, coming up on market shares coming up, PepsiCo is unshrinking shrinkflation, how consumers are impacting the amount of chips that the company's putting in its bags after the break.
Jason, let's go see your room.
How is it? Is it good?
Welcome back to Market Shares. Wrapping things up here. We're finishing with some news that's sweet rather than salty. It's good news for anyone who's complained about the amount of chips in their Tostitos bags. These days, PepsiCo, the owner of Lay's, Doritos, Tostitos, and Ruffles chips, will start putting more chips in their bags.
Yeah, Peter, this is in response to the shoppers who have complained about downsizing products known as shrinkflation. A spokesperson from PepsiCo stated that Tostitos bonus bags will contain 20% more chips for the same prices. Last quarter, the company's snack sales dropped 1% and snack volumes dropped 1.5%, Peter.
That's good to hear, especially as football season ramps up. A lot of gatherings together, lots of chips to go through. Thanks so much for watching Market Shares. I'm Peter Elliott.
And I'm Mike Lamorte. Have a great night, Syracuse.